Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Syngenta Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, and C&M Seeds.
Bruce Burnett is weather and crop analyst with CWV Market Research, soon to be G3 Canada, or turning into G3 Canada. And Bruce, looking at protein premiums in the wheat market this year, we're seeing plenty of high protein wheat in terms of supply right now.
Yes, we certainly are. There's been a very good crop in the U.S. And most of it is graded out very well, but it's also been higher protein. It's about 0.5% above what they had last year, which puts it more into that normal range. So this year, what's happened is protein premiums have come down considerably. We're looking at spreads between low and high protein now measured in sort of the 25 cent to 50 cent range at most in terms of the premiums versus last year when you were measuring those spreads in terms of US dollars, so per bushel. So really it's a dramatic change. I think the thing that people should concentrate on specifically is that the protein market as it's developed here is mostly a North American market. So when you have a high protein crop in Canada and a high protein crop in the United States, it really does push those premiums into a very narrow spread, and that's what's going to happen this year. So we would expect this to remain through a good portion of this marketing year. Again, the protein premiums in the latter half of the year will be influenced a bit by this winter wheat crop and the status of it down in the southern plains of the U.S., whether the expectation is for better premiums or better protein levels or lesser protein levels than they've been having over the past few years. That's something to keep in mind. We certainly had seen some narrow protein levels in the past as well, so this is not something out of the ordinary, but certainly it'd be something to keep an eye on as we go through the upcoming marketing year.
If we look back in just to put it into context, at the last 5 or 10 years, would you say that the value of protein has been less than in the past, or is there a trend there?
I think that there's no real trend in the protein premiums. It's just more about supply and demand. Domestically especially. There is, of course, offshore demand for protein as well. But again, given the amount of protein that we have, it's certainly going to be certainly adequate to supply those customers with. So again, I don't think we're going to see a big movement in these protein premiums. Again, if we get into next year and it's looking like a very low protein hard red winter crop in the U.S., we could probably see those premiums perk up. But for here and for now, we're living in North America, at least anyway, off of a fairly high protein hard red winter wheat crop, as well as high protein spring wheat crops in Canada and the northern plains of the U.S.
One of the reasons we wanted to talk about this was because I think farmers in Western Canada, there's been a trend toward growing more of these higher yielding, maybe lower protein wheat varieties, and I think some farmers will say that there's incentive to grow a higher yield rather than a higher protein. What do you think the market is telling them?
Yes, to some extent that's true, but it depends. Like, I mean, if you talk to someone who had high protein wheat last year, and you take a look at it, the other, the economic incentive was definitely to have protein wheat last year. The unfortunate thing about protein is that agronomically you control it a bit, but really it's up to Mother Nature. And then in terms of the overall market, it's also up to Mother Nature to determine whether or not you're going to get a good protein premium or not. I think a lot of this market will eventually move into a situation where farmers who can produce higher protein fairly consistently will generally still stick with that market, and then In other areas that are maybe less climatically suited, you'll see more of these higher yielding varieties come in into those regions, just because of, again, the fact that it'll be less of a chance in some of those areas of receiving consistent high protein.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, Bruce.
Sure.